Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Holyoke School Committee.
Buenas noches,
It's Monday, September 27th.
es lunes 23 de septiembre
And it's 6:04 p.m.
y son las 4 de la noche.
Mike, are we broadcasting the English version? Sounds good, though, right? Yeah, excellent. Happy to hear that. Ms. Garcia, do you want to do roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Murphy?
Here.
Mr.
El
Sheehan?
alcalde Murphy,
Ms. LaFave?
Present.
Ms. Brunel? Ms. Tensley Williams? Ms. Burks?
Here.
Ms. Feliciano Sims? Mr. Willihan?
Here.
Mr. Callamore?
Here.
Mr. Kershane?
Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
todos se ponen de pies para la alza de la bandera.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. So I'm just going to go over a few things, but before I even start, I just want to make sure that the translation piece is so that we're not hearing it back. So hopefully that's been fixed. But I just want to remind everyone that pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I am hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting, and the meeting is being live streamed and run live on the city's community TV channel. I also want to remind the public that the school committee is meeting in person. We are here at Dean Tech in the Fiefeld room. We all have our masks on. That is the requirement for our meetings to be in person. The only virtual that you are seeing and the public is seeing is individuals that signed up to do public speaking, public comment, members of the cabinet, staff from the schools, and anyone else that wanted to join in on the webinar. But other than that, the school committee is here at the school. With that being said, I'm just going to pass it for a moment over to Ms. Burks.
Thank you. So, as some may or may not be aware, this past week we lost a Holyoke, I want to say child. He was 23 years old, Artisan Dennis. His family had asked that I share their deep appreciation to not only the school district, but also the community at large for all the love and support. He was an assistant coach for our volleyball team, and he attended Holyoke Public Schools from Metcalf straight through. Anybody who got the opportunity or the chance to know him got the opportunity and chance to know love. And so I'm respectfully asking for a moment of silence for him to remember the light and the love that he's shown to not only every person that he met, but everyone in this community. And I need to also really thank Mel Martin, Coach Conway, as well as our Holyoke volleyball teams as they showed up to the church and presented as the honor guard. If I can say anything, I can say that you made me proud to be a school committee member representing the Holyoke Public Schools. Your respect and the love that you've shown that day was absolutely amazing. And the gratitude is enormous because he was so well loved. So I just want to thank you all for showing up and showing out and being so kind, loving, and respectful, because it really did mean the world to the family and everybody that was in attendance. So if we could take a moment of silence for Artisan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burks, and to the family, our deepest condolences and prayers for that family. I know we do have public comment. I am getting a text stating that there's no visuals. I'm not sure what that means, but I know when I'm looking at the screen here, the school committee's blacked out. Like it just says school committee. So what they're seeing from our end is this black screen. It's not like last time. What do you have on yours? It's black. So are we? So they should actually be having visuals? Well, I hope, because they're saying there's none. But so I know that I have 3 that signed up for public comment. Did we have any other individuals that signed up for No? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start first with Kiara Krogan.
Hello? Can you hear me? Sorry. It's just like it was messed up and now it fixed itself. Sorry. Okay. Hello, my name is, oh, sorry. I can go?
Yes,
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that you were up and just state your name and residence or residency.
My name is Kiara Krogan. I live in Holyoke. I'm a current senior attending Holyoke High School North. My relationship to ethnic studies started in the 5th grade when Dana Altschuler first introduced the topic. Ever since then, I've become a fully devoted student to the subject, and it has opened my eyes in literally every way and has made me 100% a better student and a better person today. With the ethnic studies director position in absence, we have lost multiple opportunities for students to become 100% better for themselves. One of these opportunities being UCAP, which is the UMass College Access Program. And this program was a partnership between ethnic studies and UMass College that helped seniors navigate the difficult and confusing college process, such as helping to fill out financial aid forms, seeking scholarship opportunities, and even having student mentors from UMass collaborate with the high school students to also discuss the issues of access and equality in schools. This very helpful program no longer exists in the high school now due to the ethnic studies director position being pulled. Another opportunity missed by students would be the student equity team organized by Dr. Drake in 2018. This team had 10 students from Holyoke High North and 10 students from Holyoke High South, which is Dean, come together and discuss current issues in the schools, such as like financial issues, where funding would go, and student input would go straight to the current superintendent in order to make big and important changes. For example, one of these changes would be the teacher expectation sheet that all new teachers have to review over and to agree before fully committing at Holyoke High School. This agreement opened the door for better teacher relationships and teacher-student relationships and opportunities to spread the ideas of our team to other schools in the state. And ever since the Ethnic Studies Director position was removed, this program has also vanished, leaving kids like me in the dust with nothing to be a part of. So I kind of feel stranded. And not only did the director role make opportunities for us inside of school, but it has made great relationships along the way. The ex-director and I have an amazing relationship. She's always been there for me as a leader and as a friend. I would even go as far as calling her family. She would go beyond lengths for me to ensure that I was at my best or reaching for it. She has helped me become the person I am today. All the knowledge from Ethnic Studies program in general has made me a better person today. Ethnic Studies has taught me important values such as learning about my identity, queer identities, and ethnic/racial identities of students. All of this information helped build a community of respect in the high school. And this position is so much more than a role in the school. It's a gateway to respectful learning and a huge building block for the community of Holyoke High. So we urge you to support ethnic studies, not just in words, but in action, please. And thank you.
Thank you, Kiara. By any chance, before I move to the next person that signed up for public speaking or public comment, it's just so hard with this whole Zoom on one end, right? And people are in person. And so I kind of feel bad because our other committee members can't actually see who's speaking, even though I didn't see the person, but you see the name, and you know that who it's coming from. But everybody here is looking at my face, and we're not really looking at who's actually speaking. So if I call the next person, you guys are going to continue looking at my face, right? I know I'm beautiful, but I know you guys don't want to be looking at me all day.
Unless they turn on their camera.
Unless they turn on their camera. So at least I know that. So that means the next person that I call on, please turn on your camera so then you can be viewed by the others through Zoom. But the other thing is again, the same with our meeting. No one on Zoom can actually see any other members from the school committee. They're only seeing me because I actually have my computer here with me. And I believe Miss Brunel as well. You can see, like, they could see you if you had your camera on. Oh, no, I was just wondering. But that's the only way that they're actually seeing who's present for a school committee member, because they're actually not viewing, and I've gotten multiple texts on that. So if hopefully we can get that fixed, and I want to apologize to the public, whoever's on participating through the webinar and is not actually viewing this at home. I'm going to go on to the next person, and that would be J.R. Rivera.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is John J.R. Rivera. I live on 2 Laurel Street, apartment number 3, Holyoke, Massachusetts. And I'm going to be presenting today as a former student that graduated this year. And for what it's worth, I hope that my testimony will not only be of value, but will be a wake-up call for everybody that receives this. To some or all, this might be difficult to hear, difficult enough to make you, close off your ears. Anticipate this reaction. So I urge you, please do a bare minimum listen, seek to understand and analyze what I'm presenting. I'm proudly, first and foremost, a dropout student of Holyoke High School, even though I graduated. just barely graduating through the Gateway program at 21 years old. Now, I consider myself a student that slipped through the cracks, as they would say. Now, I won't go into the statistics that said that I was doomed to fail the moment I was birthed. From subsidized housing, homelessness, to welfare subsidies, I've seen it all. Ethnic studies, Palante, Presente, and the Gateway program all contributed massively to my journey avoiding the crack that many of non-English speakers slip through. I can tell you with certainty that without just one and only one of these programs, I would have slipped through that crack. Just like my colleague previously stated, and just like the millions around this country who could use this program to excel, just like the ones who have gone through these rigorous studies, ethnic studies has proven time and again that it not only helps students both of color and not of color graduate, but to give back to the community that helped spur them along. I'm currently a Latinx major at Holyoke Community College, the farmers market manager of the Holyoke Farmers Market, a co-director at the food policy nonprofit, and a member of various boards in Holyoke. Without ethnic studies or any of the related programs, Holyoke would have lost kids like me. Holyoke is 52% Hispanic Latino. As the crisis of capitalism and imperialism increase, immigration from Latin countries is to increase. Holyoke is known for a haven for all Latinos of all creeds, as we know. The next 10 years, we'll see this we'll see hand in hand this effect. If ethnic studies is to be done here at HPS, it is a symbolic gesture of the administration that leads it. It's a symbolic gesture that none of the folks that were in the positions of power didn't do enough to save it. Those folks in charge did not lead others to advocate on the basis of saving and preserving a culture. This symbolic gesture is a form of compliance with white supremacy. I'll second that, and even to add what a former teacher said in his letter. I'm aware that nobody is proposing to do away with ethnic studies, maybe not on paper, but I assure you in practice that this is essentially what you're doing with this group. In relation to the statement, I'll add that you all who did this are not intentionally maybe compliant or for white supremacy. And I'll finish off by saying I anticipate that most who listen to this will go out on about their lives without batting an eye towards what I've said. I hope to be proven wrong, but from my experience at Holyoke Public Schools, I doubt that that'll be the case. By any chance that you do wish to combat this, I ask you to organize and urge district leadership to pause their decision and collaborate with ES leaders, students, and community members on the basis of furthering the future of the program. We ask that you please consider supporting the Ethnic Studies Director position. We urge you to support ethnic studies, not just in words, but in action. And thank you so much for the time. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rivera. Our next person is either Kiza or Kiza Nigreen. I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Hello. Should I start?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. It just took me a second to get on, and I'm hearing an echo, so I apologize. Let me. My voice is echoing back, which makes it hard for me to speak. Is there a way to fix that?
Do you currently have another device that's connected?
Let's see.
And maybe that's why you're getting the echo. And who? Oh, so you're connected under 3 different devices to this meeting. So in order to not have that happen, the other devices that are near you would have to be muted.
I think
You got to mute all your other devices.
I only have one computer. Whoops.
Yeah.
I only have one device.
Are you using audio with your phone and laptop?
Just laptop.
are you on Zoom through your phone?
No.
What other device is on?
I have a telephone. I'll turn it off.
Yeah.
I'll turn off the phone just in case. Okay, I've turned off the phone.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you sign out, sign back in with one device? You're definitely going to come up and speak. And,
All right.
Okay. So go ahead
I'll
and
try
do
that.
Wait. Oh. She'll be back. Sorry about that. Right, darn.
When she took off her earbuds.
Oh, the earbuds. Okay. She'll be back.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. This does seem to have fixed the problem.
Great.
Great. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Should I go ahead and start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening. Hi, my name is Kaisa Nygreen. I'm a professor at UMass Amherst in the College of Education, and I'm speaking tonight as a university faculty member and a partner of Holyoke Ethnic Studies. I'm just one of many university partners in this region who support Holyoke Ethnic Studies and collaborate with Holyoke Ethnic Studies. In June of this year, 29 of us university partners signed a letter expressing our serious concern with the elimination of the Ethnic Studies Director position. We called on Superintendent Anthony Soto to reverse the decision. I'm here tonight to reiterate this concern because we've not yet seen action. All 29 signatories on the letter are university scholars and researchers and professors who collaborate with Holyoke Ethnic Studies. Through our collaborations, we provide numerous opportunities to students. These include after-school programming in clubs, field trips to local colleges, dual enrollment opportunities at our colleges, teacher professional development, and support with community engagement and outreach. My work specifically includes helping to plan and facilitate teacher professional development for ethnic studies teachers, helping to create a future teachers club and a dual enrollment agreement with UMass College of Education, and organizing a field trip for ethnic studies students to UMass to participate in a Black Lives Matter in Education event. And that's just one example. Without a full-time ethnic studies director, much of this partnership work will not be sustained. Holyoke Ethnic Studies is such a special and unique program, but it needs a full-time director who has designated and compensated time in the week to undertake the relational and administrative work of managing multiple community and university partnerships, and also to serve as an intellectual leader for the program. The decision to eliminate the director position will result in fewer opportunities for students to participate in community engagement and college access partnerships, and it already has had that result. Holyoke students will lose out from this decision, and the Ethnic Studies program will be weakened by this decision. I urge you to reverse this decision and reinstate the director position immediately. Please consider the unique and transformative nature of the Ethnic Studies program, which is distinct from other departments. As an educational researcher, I truly believe that Holyoke Ethnic Studies program is unique and special, and that it could be a model, a national model for what ethnic studies can be. Please stand by your commitment to anti-racism in concrete ways that move beyond rhetoric. I'm here tonight with the previous two speakers, and together we urge you to support ethnic studies, not just in words, but in action. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nygreen. So, does anybody have anything they wanted to say? No. No, we're not allowed to. It's not a dialogue.
That's right.
So we're going to go ahead and move to the student showcase.
So, we just received a text message 5 minutes before the meeting that unfortunately the Holyoke High School Theater Company that we were showcasing through teacher Bevan Brunell over at the high school, they're not able to show up today. So we did have a MASS certificate presentation that we wanted to present, and I'm going to ask Al Gates to come off camera. We have two. One of them is Armani Ruiz at the Dean campus, and the other one is Jacqueline Jourdain at the Holyoke High North campus. But unfortunately, Jacqueline is at a volleyball game today, where she is needed. So we plan to present this certificate to her at the October meeting. Al?
Thank you, Anthony Soto, and hello, school committee. I appreciate the patience that you all have for the tech, and I see that Armani is in the room, and just wanted to say a couple words about Armani Ruiz. Armani is a senior this year in our culinary arts program, and Armani has been a student leader since arriving on campus as a ninth grade student at Dean. Armani has always sought to be in the action that makes and creates change. And she's mentored students in grades 6 through 8. She's collaborated with Sodexo when they were looking for feedback on school lunches, has stepped up to lead, but is also somebody who will fall back and follow because she's not too prideful and knows when other people need to have the chance to lead. So Armani enters her senior year, always having been in honors classes, carries a very high GPA right now, and is also working, and is somebody that has been through just a lot of kind of challenges that Armani has navigated through in order to show up and be where she is today. And, at a 3.94 GPA, we know that doing that through many challenges in all honors classes is something to be said. And working right now, Armani stays plugged in. So a critical thinker, a member of our community, and somebody who we will be hearing about over the next year and more. So Armani Ruiz, you're receiving this reward on academic excellence on behalf of the school committee and HPS, and well deserved. I don't know if Armani wants to say a word or two.
Yeah, I can speak. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to people who, gave me the chance to achieve this award and who recognized the work I put into, and obviously I've gotten so much support from, staff and students alike. And even, through hard times, I can see that Dean or staff in general is always supporting me and pushing me to be better. Even when I want to fall back, I'm always pushed to just be a leader and do better for myself. So thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for being your humble self. But we look forward to hearing more from you this year.
Thank you, Armani. I just want to congratulate you on getting this. As a fellow Dean student myself, I was in the same boat as you. I had a lot of support at the school, felt very supported, and I would just encourage you to continue to work hard this year, next year, and then beyond high school.
Congratulations, Armani. Great job. I apologize. There's some weird stuff happening here on my phone. Oh, my camera. It's not. Oh my God. It's Monday. That's what it is. Hi, Armani. I just want to say congratulations. I'm sure there might be some other members that have something that they want to say, a comment, question. Anyone? Miss Tensley Williams.
Turned it. Oh. Congratulations, young lady, and we are very proud of you. And we want you to just keep up the good work, and we will be hearing from you within this next year. God bless.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else for student showcase, or that was it, Mr. Soto?
Yes, that was it for today. Jacqueline Jourdain is at the North Campus. Unfortunately, she had a volleyball game tonight, so we will give her the certificate and at the next school committee meeting.
Congratulations to her as well. So we're going to go ahead and I do have a question real quickly. I don't see here student reps. The student reps. So when can we start expecting them? From the Dean campus and from the North campus. It's important that we have our student reps here.
I will make sure that Dr. Mahoney works with the two principals to identify two students interested.
Okay, great, thank you. So hopefully they can be here at the next meeting in October. So we're going to go ahead and move on to communications and reports. What I am going to ask is that because it's so much information, if we were to have Mr. Soto go through it all, then ask questions, it's just the whole thing of going back. If we have a question, like that's this slide on this specific thing and trying to hunt it down. So if we can go by bullets, in the sense, so like the first one was back to school update, do your whole presentation on that, and then anybody have questions, then it'll be at the end of that presentation. Then the COVID-19 update, then okay. So that way hopefully it can make it much more easier. So any questions that you may have or something comes to mind, write it down so you don't forget, and hopefully that we can run the meeting much smoother that way.
All right, thank you, Ms. LaFave. And I do want to jump right to the back to school slide. So we're going to discuss enrollment, attendance, a quick staffing update, learning plan for extended leaves, and a quick MCAS update. The first category we're going to talk about is enrollment. So as you can see here in this slide, we do have a decrease in enrollment. But the decrease in enrollment is more evident in our pre-K and K grade levels. If you look at the next slide, our enrollment for just grades 1 through 12 actually increased from 2 years ago, from 4,545 to 4,569. So where we did see the decrease, like I mentioned before, was in pre-K and K. We're down about 171 students. Unfortunately, I think that the pandemic has had a lot of impact in families feeling comfortable sending their younger learners to school. Next slide, please. So you can see in 2000 in FY 20, we had about 769 kindergarteners in pre-K, and we're down to about 598, which is consistent with last year. So we hope that as we combat this pandemic, that more families will choose to send their children to school in those earlier grades, because we know how important early education is in the development of a child's learning, how important pre-K and kindergarten is to their growth. So overall, the district's attendance rate for the first 4 weeks is about 86%, which is consistent with last year. But normally before the pandemic, we were at about 95%. The rates, we analyzed the rates. They tend to be higher in the middle of the week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and the lowest are on Mondays and Fridays. So we're not able to report yet on chronic absenteeism. It's too early to do that in order to calculate it accurately. Schools are working on cleaning up their attendance data. You can see here that in our attendance data, there's 47 students that haven't shown up, and that's contributing to the low attendance rate. Some schools have more than others. You can see OA and Veritas have more students that they're included in our numbers but haven't showed up since the beginning of the school year, and could likely be withdrawals. It could be that they move to another district. So as schools clean up the data, we'll be sure to update our attendance data accordingly. We also want to recognize that whenever we present attendance data, we never include pre-K because it's not required by the state. So here's a breakdown of our elementary, middle, and our high school. You can see a breakdown of the last 3 years. We were really high in 1920 with all of our efforts to increase attendance. It's trended downwards, but you can see at the high school we're a little higher than we were last year, and pretty flat the last couple of years around for elementary and middle school. Here's a breakdown of our attendance rate by school. You can see that overall we're well below the 95%. And we're 86% now, but compared to 95% in 19. Some schools are a little higher in attendance than the average. You could see STEM, Lawrence, Peck, and Veritas are below the average. Veritas looks to be at 75% there, but they happen to be the school that has the most no-shows. So we're working on cleaning up that data. I pulled the information today. They had about 24 partially completed no-shows and withdrawals, and when we fixed the data and looked at it today, they're at like 80%, which is still lower than a lot of the other schools, but not as low as the 75%. And we're going to be working with Veritas to figure out making sure that they're following all of our strategies to get and keep kids in school. At the high school, our average is about 84%. You could see that North Campus has the majority of our students, so they're right around the average. And at Dean, interestingly enough, they're at slightly above the average at about 90% attendance, which is great. And then Opportunity Academies, you can see, is really low, 59%. And we expect these attendance rates to be low. These are our students that we serve that are not in a traditional normal setting, and they require alternative learning environment, which includes a flexible schedule. And this slide here is medical-related absences. So you can see in this slide we're looking at the percentage of absences at each school that are coded as medically excused. So it's important to note that although some of these may be COVID-related, we don't identify in our attendance data. We identify all medically excused absences, not just COVID-related. So on average, about 21% of our absences are coded as medically excused. Attendance is really difficult to tackle amidst the pandemic. We are really encouraging families strongly to keep their kids home when they're sick. Our attendance data definitely reflects that. We're going to continue to encourage families to keep their kids at home when they're sick. That's how we're going to keep our schools safe. But I think it's also important for us to continue to dig into this data and you know, monitor the students that aren't showing up and don't have and aren't medically excused, because we want to make sure we're re-engaging our students and following up and having those conversations with families and making those connections. We did identify the attendance data by subgroup as well. So we looked at students with IEPs versus students without IEPs, and we looked at students who identify as Ls versus non-Ls, and you could see that in both cases, the attendance is slightly below their peers. And at the high school, it's a little more evident. You can see on that slide that at the high school, when you look at IEP versus non-IEP students and L students versus non-L students, that the attendance rate has dipped pretty significantly compared to their peers. So, quick staffing update. We've been hit really hard by late resignations this year. We've had 15 resignations this year compared to last year. You can see here that in terms of teacher vacancies, we were at about 27 vacancies as of last week. 8 of them were SPED, but 3 out of those 8 are core SPED teaching positions. The other 5 are psychologists and speech pathologists or related service providers. We continue to our recruitment efforts. We're going to continue to do those and work with our higher institutions and our partners. We have a recruitment fair coming up that we partnered with Get Hired on October 6th. It's going to be at the Holyoke Mall. We are holding an HPS virtual recruitment fair as well, and we'll be partnering with Mass Hire. That one's going to be on September 29th, and that's going to be virtual too. We do have about 41 paraprofessional vacancies, of which 22 of them are special ed, and the others are support roles. And we just continue to do everything that we can to try to, you know, this has probably been one of the biggest challenges that we've experienced in a long, long time in regards to staffing. We're trying an employee referral program. We're doing recruitment fairs. We're offering, to pay for the para pro tests and reimburse paraprofessionals that have to take that test. We're doing a lot of things that we haven't done in the past to just try to attract and get these employees to fill these vacancies and provide the services that are required. Our learning, we have developed and are implementing a learning support plan that will be in effect for any student who needs to be absent, either due to a mandatory isolation or any type of illness that requires them to be out of school. So that we have put that together. We want students to, if they are going to be taking a longer leave, more than 7 to 10 days, we want to make sure that they can access instruction. So we're going to be having teachers put their class assignments, within 2 days of the absence. The assignments are going to be in Google Classroom or Class Dojo. And we're going to make sure that they have access to all of their learning platforms, like in math and ELA. One of the things we need to make sure is that they have a device. So within 2 days, we're going to work with the schools and our technology team to provide a device. And we also want to make sure that someone at the school is making a personal connection every day. In some cases, it's going to be the counselor. Some cases, it'll be other staff in the building, but we want to make sure that there is that personal connection being made every single day if a student does have to quarantine for a long period of time. So for MCAS, we did So for MCAS, we broke down our participation rates, and surprisingly, our participation rates remain pretty high. They're about 95% for grades 3 to 8 and in English and math, and 81 and 82% for grade 10. I didn't expect the participation rates to be so high, given everything that we went through, but you can see here that on average it was about 94% in ELA compared to 96% 2 years ago. We did not administer MCAS tests last year in 2020, or the year before. Our math participation rates are at about 93%, where we were at 96%. Again, in 10th grade, you could see a bigger dip in terms of the participation rate. It went from 86% to 80%. And then in science, the same thing. We were at 95 in 19, and we're at 92% right now. And this is no surprise. We did an analysis on the MCAS data and compared it to 19. So we compared our own data to how we did in 19. And we saw dips across pretty much in all of our grades except for grade 10, which we had seen a 7% increase in ELA in particular. So the biggest grade we saw a drop was in grade 8, where we had dropped 10 percentage points in ELA. Later on in the presentation, you'll see where we compared all of our MCAS data to the state's average, but the next few slides we're just going to be presenting how we did this MCAS compared to 2019. You can see on the next slide in ELA, should be a bar chart. That black line that you see represents where we were in 2019 relative to meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. So you can see in almost every grade that there was a percentage drop in that black line, with the exception of 10th grade, which saw an increase. So the percentage of students meeting or exceeding ELA standards, it dropped overall like 5%. It was at 19% in 19, and it's 14 now. And then we also did an analysis on students that are not meeting expectations that you can see in the red here. That increased by about 9% from 32% to 41%. In math, you can see here that, in all grade levels, consistent with the state, we did see a drop overall of about 7.7% in math. We were at 12%, and we're now down to 5% in terms of meeting or exceeding expectations, which was a drop of 7%. And you could see the most significant drops here were in grades 3 and 4. And the same thing with science. We did see a significant dip. The next way we analyze the data, which is on the next slide, is we compared the gap between our scores and the states in both years. And you could see here that not only, in ELA, the gap basically remained consistent. So the same drop that we saw at the state level is the same drop that we saw in Holyoke. And in math, what we saw is that the state had a bigger drop than in Holyoke. So we narrowed that gap, but it's not to say that, that was a result of us performing better, because we did see a drop. It just shows the impact that the pandemic has had across the entire state. So while we narrowed the gap, it's still very concerning. We really need to make sure that we're performing better on these MCAS tests. And the next slide, I think, kind of depicts that. So this is just a visual. You can see in ELA that first gap, it's the same. The blue bar represents where Holyoke is in 19 and 21. and where the state average was in 19 and 21. And you can see the gap was the same, which was about a 34% difference. And then in math, you could see that that gap got a little bit smaller. So these results really just highlight the importance of our students needing to be in person, and it's why we need to be proactive and planning how we're going to address these gaps. We do have an accelerated learning plan. We've made a significant amount of investments in academic intervention teachers, in coaching, in math and reading interventions. We are working on strengthening the instructional core. And another thing we're doing is we're looking at the students that performed at the bottom 25% on these scores, and we're working at every school level for those students to be identified and for schools to create a learning acceleration plan to make sure that those students are getting the supports that they need to improve in academics. And we do know families will be receiving the MCAS report card shortly after September 30th. And I think that we still, we just got this data. It was made public last Tuesday. We're still analyzing it. This was a real high-level update of the data, but we still have to analyze it by school. We're going to be analyzing it by subgroup. For now, we thought that this was we just wanted to give a brief update to the committee where we were at with relative to the state and relative to 2019, which was the last MCAS that we took.
I know I have Ms. Brunel first.
Just back up to enrollment. Isn't there a date in October where you have to send final enrollment numbers to the state?
Yeah, there's a date in October and in March. So October 1st is the date we have to report SIMs.
So that's Friday. So I'm just curious because you said we still have a ton of no-shows. So are those going to be fixed before Friday, before we turn in the numbers?
Yeah, we're as best we could. I mean, we gotta, in order to withdraw a student, you have to have proof that they're actually withdrawn and that they went somewhere else and that they're not dropouts.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's a hard process because some people move and we can't, we don't know where they went. The state requires us to have proof that they enrolled in another school. Otherwise, they got to be coded as a dropout.
Okay.
It's a lot of work.
I had a second question, but I can't remember it now. So.
We'll come back to you. Ms. Burks?
So my question is going to be in regards to staffing.
Yep.
I know that across the state we're looking at critical staffing issues. I have a few major concerns, especially in regards to compliance in the state when it comes to special education, IEPs. And if we're down 22 special education paraprofessionals, that's concerning. I'm fielding a lot of phone calls and complaints from parents that aren't receiving speech services. And I know that the district is trying to figure something out, but in the interim, we're non-compliant with the state, and that's an issue. But for me, the biggest thing is that when parents are calling, they're saying that their students are regressing. So that regression, I mean, to us, it's one student amongst thousands in the district, but to that one family, that one student is their life. And as a parent of a special ed student, seeing regression is one of the worst things that you can see. So for a long time, special education has been something that we've struggled with in this district, and making sure that we've done what we needed to do to meet these students' IEPs. So I have some real concerns about that. And I know Marianne has worked really, really hard to get us back into good standing by way of making sure that IEPs are being followed. But I just tend to want to be honest and transparent with families. I think we need to be really real and have these real conversations about We have the critical staffing shortage. You know, these are the issues. And work with families to come up with solutions on things that might work. I know Marianne is reaching out to agencies, but we need to start offering options because legally it's our responsibility to make sure that these students are getting the services provided. If that means that moms and dads have to call and set up outside appointments with, let's say, Holyoke Hospital for speech services or Bay State or wherever, then it's on the district to take care of that bill. And if that's something that parents really need to do because of regression, then we need to start showing parents their options and leading them to making sure that their students are getting the services that they need, but they deserve. So those are all numbers and problems that are really concerning. And we're talking about, you know, we're down 8 special ed teachers, but that includes the psychologists as well. Is that also, how many for the speech, the OTPT, how many psychologists are we down? I'm seeing the 22, I heard the 22 special education paras, but I am concerned about how many teachers as well. Because I know you said there's 8, but is that 8 including psychologists and all of our special services, OTPT, speech, all that?
Yeah.
So 8 total in the district, because I thought we were down at least 5 speech therapists alone. And that's not including a psychologist, special ed teachers, or anything like that. So I'm kind of questioning that. But these are my concerns, and I really want to have open, honest, transparent conversations with families. Like, it's important to me, you know, that parents have an expectation that their children are getting services. And 99% of the time, when you're talking about special education families, those students aren't able to come home and tell mom and dad whether or not those services happen. Parents are going off trust. So when they're starting to see regression and they're finding out after the fact, that's not okay. So for me, those are really concerning numbers. You know, I know we're doing outreach. I know we're trying to hire. I know there's a critical shortage in the state. I know we had to call in the National Guard for busing. Like, I'm aware. But I'm also really mindful of what these families are going through. It's been a really rough year with delays in regression, and now that they're back in person and still not receiving services, I can understand the frustration from our families. So we just need to start thinking outside of the box to come up with some real viable solutions to start supporting these students. So that's my issue.
Yeah, thank you. And I can tell you that our special ed team is working, and our HR team is working really hard. We're looking at creative ways. This is one of the areas. There's 2 times where I reached out to the state for help. One was around the busing, and one was around this issue. It's a real issue. It's a real concern. I share that concern with you, Ms. Burks, and with any family that is in this position. We do have 2 psychologist vacancies, and then the rest are the speech therapy. So Marianne is going to be meeting with other partners. We're trying, you know, we've even tried to make the salary more competitive through offering a stipend. I know that that's been a barrier in years past with getting speech therapists in the door. So we're trying to address that. And we're also exploring the option to, if the family would allow it, for us to provide these services after school hours remotely. And we'll make sure that, you know, the family has the technology they need to be able to do this. But we need the staff. It's not a matter of like us not exploring options that are there. We're exploring every possible option that's there. That is something we're looking into. We're also reaching out to the vendors that we normally use to see if they have staff that are willing to work outside of the school day and provide these services remotely to our students at a cost. So we're really, really trying to be creative, and I understand that and share that that's a huge concern. It's a huge concern of mine, and and I've even reached out to the state to see if there's any support that they could offer. They didn't have any short-term solutions. They did, as a state, they did mention potentially looking at partners to develop pipelines for positions like these. So you know how we have TFA, Teach Western Mass, and we have all these different pipelines to create a teacher pathway. They're looking into seeing if they could reach out to agencies like that to have a pipeline for these types of positions, which are really unique. I didn't say 6 speech. I said 3 teachers out of the 8. So 2 of them are psychologists. So then the rest would be speech. Down three special ed teachers out of the 8 special ed vacancies, right? 2 psychologists. Then that would be 3 speech. And that's as of when this data was pulled, which was last week, the middle of last week. So it was probably from the week before.
Ms. Chensley Williams? Thank you, Ms. Chensley Williams. Mr. Collmore?
Yeah, Dr. Soto, and elementary school attendance. You mentioned 85% start of school, but then you mentioned 95% at a later date. Now, when you say later date, does that mean the end of the school year, or does that mean in the middle of the school year? You know, does the attendance keep rising and rising to a point where at one point we were 95%?
Yeah, that what I meant by that, Mr. Collmore, is that in the school year 20 before the pandemic, our attendance rate in those grade levels was 95%, and we're down to 86% now.
Okay.
So it wasn't a later date; it was a previous date.
Previous date.
Yes. And you know, last year was a year where we were hybrid for much of the year, and then we went in April. We started phasing in different grade spans. Our attendance rate for the whole year was, or for the first 4 weeks, was 88%. So we did drop, but we expected that to be a drop. You know, kids are in school 5 days a week. There wasn't a lot of there's not a lot of the restrictions that that existed at the beginning of last school year are in place now. So we anticipated, kids. We anticipated the attendance rates to go down a little bit, but we do need to make sure we're doing the outreach. The FACE team is working with counselors and working with contacting those families, identifying those families that have had absences due to illness, and just making sure we're in contact with them. But the ones that haven't been absent due to illness, really trying to make that connection and understand why they're not coming to school.
Thank you. The other thing is staffing. And I understand your situation, getting teachers. I understand that perfectly well. But substitute teachers, do we have a list of substitute teachers? And Are they available, these teachers, to help us out?
That is another that's another concern that you don't. I don't think we see substitutes on here, but it is. We do have some day-to-day. Some schools have day-to-day subs that show up every day, but that's those are positions that are tough. Were tougher to fill at the beginning of this year, more so than some of our teaching positions. Like we really struggled to get substitutes, and it's a challenge. You know, when we have staff that have to quarantine and we have to pull. You know, we made a lot of investments in our coaches, a lot of investments in our academic intervention teachers, and unfortunately, due to the lack of substitute teachers, we're having to pull those positions to help. You know, we got to prioritize having a teacher in front of kids, right? So that has been a challenge. I am working with our HR director to try to make that salary more competitive. And we just had a meeting about it this late last week. So we're going to be looking at the pay scale for what we're offering substitutes, and hopefully that's going to get more substitutes in the door. But I can't guarantee that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Collmore. Mr. Wellhan.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Mrs. Burks's concerns with the staffing, is there any sort of like incentive program that we can add? I mean, you have multi-billion-dollar corporations throughout the country that are adding salary, adding benefits, adding incentives to attract employees. I mean, it's a nationwide trend where there's every type of industry is looking for qualified staffing, to make overtime. Maybe we can pay for a couple classes at the college, a couple credits, just to get these positions filled. I know they're very important. They're just something just to kind of think outside the box. And then just going back to the individual schools, I know PEC is below the average. I'm concerned about that because the next step is high school. Okay, that's the next step. And if the attendance is down at PEC, okay, that's just going to lead to other issues. They try to make it to the next step up. Same with the third grade. That's an important subsection. We all know that. If they're struggling, if they're not going to school in third grade, that's going to just set them back in terms of moving forward. So I'm just concerned with some of these subsections. And then again, some of the major deficiencies with Veritas, with their attendance, when do we start getting the parents involved to try to, I know you're talking about the outreach, but in terms of getting, firm data on why the kid's not showing up. Is it illness? Is it other commitments? Is it family issues? So just to kind of get that subsection up. Thank you.
Yeah, and in response to, being creative with compensation, we are offering an employee referral program, which is something we've never done before. We've expanded our recruitment, and we're offering relocation bonuses if we have really good, qualified candidates. We've offered bonuses to sign on. There's different, we're doing some of that you're talking about. And I also will say that this isn't, and I'm not making any excuses. I'm just talking about the state we're in right now. Like, this is not unique to Holyoke. I think that in many ways we had this ESSER money. We created positions. We've lost some teaching positions to go into some of those academic intervention and coaching positions. Springfield has all this ESSER money. They've created more positions. All of these communities, in addition to the pandemic and the additional unemployment benefits, it's like all of these different factors are contributing to the issues we see today, and we're doing everything that we can. Our HR team, God bless them, they've been working really hard. This is the toughest time of the year for them, and they're working to support all our principals in this difficult task of filling all of our vacancies.
Thank you, Mr. Wellahan. Mr. Christian.
I see. I mean, it really is tough all around. You know, hearing about National Guard. My son was in the National Guard, and I can't even imagine him being deployed to drive buses, etc. It sounds dire, and I'm kind of worried about losing the traction with the pre-K.
Yeah.
And so in those classes, the teachers are in place. We just don't have the students coming to class. Is that kind of the situation? Is that what's going on?
We so for mini buses and big buses, we didn't experience any driver shortages. So these companies, and it's happening, you guys saw it on the news, it's happening across the nation. So it hasn't impacted us yet in the mini buses and the big buses. I'm not going to say that it's not going to impact us, because just like we're faced with COVID-related issues, if we have 4 or 5 drivers that happen to test positive and have to quarantine for 14 days, we don't have, we're going to experience issues in mini and big. The companies, luckily we have Durham, who's a national company, and they have drivers in East Hampton, they have drivers in other communities that they can pull, but we haven't experienced any issues with that level of transportation. Where we experienced issues with was our van. So we use van pool to transport some of our displaced students or students who I'd rather not comment on the demographic just for privacy reasons, but all of our van transportation, that's where we've experienced some driver shortages. And they were able to meet our need for the first couple of weeks. It got to a point where we had 15 new students either move or go somewhere else. Sometimes we go out and get them in Springfield and bring them back to our schools because they moved.
Right.
And when we reached out to them, they were like, this is going to take a while. We're experiencing issues. So once I heard that, that's when I reached out to the state and I asked if they could help. And I'm glad they were. So what they do is we needed 6 drivers, and we worked with the state for them to send, the van company sent 6 vans to the base in Chicopee, and then they provided 6 drivers, and they worked with. I will say that all families that had students like this, that were in this situation, were contacted, notified. We made sure that it was okay with them because they are in uniform. But luckily, we had that option because it's an issue that's happening everywhere. I think that we haven't been impacted as much as what I'm seeing in other communities, but we have been impacted.
Yeah, I think that was handled well. I didn't know what else you could do, and I probably shouldn't have brought that the first thing that I said. What I'm really concerned about is the pre-K loss in numbers. That seemed like you're saying, and it has nothing to do with buses.
Okay.
I was just saying that I know we have shortages everywhere, and it's like we have shortages of bus drivers, we have shortages of teachers, which are important. I'm really worried about our overall turnaround. And what we've been trying to do, we made great strides getting pre-Ks in every school basically, except the high schools, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm assuming we have the pre-K staff, but we have a lot of no-shows right now. Was what I was getting out of that.
We have more slots than what families are enrolling right now. So it is. What we're really working on now moving forward is we have a lot of half-day pre-K programs, and we're trying to convert them to full-day programs. So ultimately, what I'd love to see is that we have universal pre-K in Holyoke, full day for all families that want it.
Yeah.
And you know, right now, if we were at the enrollment that we were 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have, you know, all of our classrooms would be fuller, and we wouldn't be able to convert some classrooms to full day because we wouldn't be able to service that many students. But we're working on a plan to move in that direction. So our enrollment team has been, you know, using Blackboard Connect. They've been, you know, we've been advertising on our website. We've been advertising everywhere, encouraging neighbors. You know, somebody that has a pre-K age student or kindergarten age student, have them enroll at Enroll Holyoke Now. We've been really, really pushing to get more families to enroll. I just think it's, you know, that some families are just hesitant to send their 5-year-old or their 4-year-old or their 6-year-old to school in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Is there
some of them have the option to keep them at home.
Is there anything we can do to provide parents homeschool materials? I'm just worried that these kids aren't going to come as prepared as we'd like, which is the whole reason we have the program. And that's kind of my long-winded way of getting to that is we have the staff. Is there something we can do? And I hate putting more burdens on people over this, but I'm just worried about the burden that's going to be placed on the kindergarten and the first grade classes when we've got kids that now are going to have this really huge, wide breadth of preparedness because of this pandemic.
Yeah.
No fault of any teacher or staff person. It's a pandemic. But what could we do to get the materials to them is all I'm...
Yeah, I think right now what we are doing is we're reviving that Heli initiative. And there's 2 areas of focus. One of them being providing, you know, identifying parents that could help with exactly what you're talking about, and we are working with our partners to provide some kits so that to help help families help their kids in those earlier grades. And then the other focus is on the curriculum itself, making sure that, you know, we have partners with VLC, Head Start, all of these different pre-K programs that are offered in Holyoke. The Heli is going to be focusing on those 2 initiatives, making sure that the program, even though they're not offered in Holyoke Public Schools, they could be offered with a partner, but we want to make sure that what is being offered is going to prepare them for when they get to Holyoke Public Schools. It is, you know, they've been working on a strategy and a vision, a new revised strategy and a vision, and have landed on those 2 focus areas. So I'm really hopeful, and you know, it's one of the things that when November 2nd, whenever we do, when we have a new mayor, it's one of the things that first things on the agenda to talk to the mayor is to continue to support that Heli initiative, because we all know how important early literacy is, and we just want to make sure that we get it right. It slipped, you know, there was an attempt to do it 5-6 years ago, and due to loss of funding at the city, I just feel like it kind of died, you know, the Heli initiative. And I want to make sure that, you know, we work with the city, partner with them, and make sure that it's supported and that it's done well, so that it doesn't, you know, so that it stays as a program in Holyoke and we keep it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kershane. Mayor Murphy?
Thank you. I'm going to stay in the same line as Mr. Kershane. So a couple of things. Since we lost 170 students less in the pre-K and kindergarten last year, I'm assuming some of those have come back. So are we monitoring where they are in relation to where the kids that stayed in the program are, and has there been a loss?
No, that the chart you see there is how many pre-K and kindergartners we had. So last year we stayed about the same. So there was 588, I believe, is the number.
But 2 years ago we had 769.
Right. So those kids have gone up.
Yeah, but last year we lost 170 in that curriculum. So some of those 170 that are not there, I'm assuming, are now back in school, and I'm just wondering if we are getting a comparison of where they are in relation to the kids that did stay with the program, in case they need some additional resources.
Yeah, we have. Those are our first graders and second graders. You could see one of the slides I presented showed like everything with the exception of pre-K and K, and you can see that our enrollment's actually up when you're just looking at non-pre-K and K.
Now, I understand the enrollment. My concern is not the enrollment, it's the people that, the kids that didn't come to school last year.
Yes.
And are now back this year. If they didn't get the foundation that the kids that were in school last year got, are they being assisted to give them a chance to make sure they catch up? And are we
Yeah, that's
very
that's
much
all
targeting them?
That's all of our students. Yes.
Okay. And do we have any idea if any of these students that are not coming to school are actually attending other daycare or education programs? We know?
Are you speaking specifically to the pre-K?
Yeah.
I don't. That's a good question, and I don't have that information with me tonight. But I can certainly follow up to see. My sense is, from what I'm hearing from the partners that we work with closely, their enrollment's down too.
Okay. Okay.
It's just families being hesitant with sending younger kids to either a pre-K center or Holyoke Public Schools.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to verify that because I think that's important. Because if they are sending them to other daycare or education programs, then what's the difference there versus the school? And if there is that difference that we could enunciate, then maybe they come into the actual school system.
I think the biggest difference, Terry, would be those programs that offer a full day program where you can bring your kid and bring your student to the program at 7:30 in the morning and pick them up at 5 o'clock. That's a really good option for working families. It is an option that we have in our 4 CPPI classrooms. So we do partner with VOC where they run 4 programs in our schools, and that's a really nice option for families, and they do it in all their centers. So I would say if a family is choosing a center like that over Holyoke, it's mainly because of that full day programming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. I do have a few questions.
Yep.
I'm going to go back to the special education.
Staffing.
We're going to talk about staffing. We're also going to talk about attendance.
Okay.
So the first thing on attendance, you have that in the first few weeks of school, it was 85.5%. Did that include the students that had tested positive, and that's why they couldn't come to school? So does this include even COVID-related?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had one slide up there that showed the percentage of our absences that are medical related.
Which was like 21% total, you said, for the district average.
Yep.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're all recognizing that. It's not that people are choosing not to come, it's that they can't come. And then if they were exposed, then obviously they can't come either. And that's why I really emphasize that we cannot hold people accountable for that, because this could happen multiple times. So when you talked about, tracking and, kind of like enforcing the attendance policy, it's kind of hard when we're going through a pandemic still. It hasn't gone away. So I just want people to be mindful that at least the parents are being proactive if they're not sending their kid to school because they were possibly exposed, and they're actually saving the other students from being at risk of being exposed. You talked about, so students that haven't come back, right? Well, they're not enrolled yet, so they haven't started back to school since we started. Since the time when Ileana was here, I've always said between staff and students, why are we not doing an exit interview? Find out why people are leaving. Why are families taking their kids and bringing them to a different district, or putting them in charter, or putting them in parochial schools, or doing homeschool? Because the only way for us to do better and to improve the education, the quality of education for all of our students is by understanding why. The same thing goes for staff, right? Why did they leave? Is it a morale issue? I mean, we're here offering bonuses and doing, you know, I don't know if you're offering higher pay for new staff, but what about the staff that has stayed here dedicated throughout the whole time? We have to take care of our own first and value them before we start trying to get more and like put them at a higher pedestal, you know, because that then becomes a morale issue where the staff who no matter what have stuck through thick or thin and stayed here because they're dedicated to us are going to feel like, and what about me? Like, am I not that great? You know, because we're trying to do so much just to get people in here. Now, Ms. Burks had mentioned something in regards to getting the services that the child needs, whichever way, be it private, whatever, that the families deserve it if the child is regressing. It's not if the child is regressing. It's if it's in their IEP. So whatever's in that IEP, whether the child's regressing, not regressing, it's on the IEP. So until the time that there is a meeting to rediscuss what services the child needs, it is our obligation to make it happen. You can't just say, well, you know, I don't have it. So, you know, we're trying. I understand you're trying, and I get it. It's hard. It's hard everywhere. But it's got to be figured out because we said the child needs it. It's on their IEP. That's the support. Those are the services that they need. So be it speech therapy, physical therapy. Now let's talk about the psychologist that you're down. You're down 2. Well, what about the students that are not progressing, that are not on an IEP, that are not progressing with a 504 accommodation? And the parents have been asking for evaluations to determine are they at the level of an IEP so that way their kids can have the services and the supports that they need so that they can succeed. Well, guess what? They're on a long waiting list. But guess what happens with that? If you expect to close these gaps, and if we expect to close these gaps, then we need the people in place. So if that means that we need to reach out to Brightside, do neuropsych evaluations for education purposes, then we're reaching out to Brightside, we're reaching out to Bay State. We figure out who we have to pay, but it is our obligation because that's the only way that we're going to see a light at the end of the tunnel, especially for our students that are struggling right now. And it's just not a few. There are plenty that are struggling. So I think the staff, I know the special education department is trying to do their best. I'm not saying you're not doing your job. What I'm saying is we have to be honest with the families, tell them, look, we don't have it, but if you know, right, a speech therapist that you are willing to take your child to or is willing to provide the service in your home, please let us know because it is our obligation to pay for these services. And if that means that's more out of our budget, then guess what? That's what it means because those kids, I'm not going to say those kids. That was the wrong choice of words because I have children in special education. But children that do require special education, I lost my train of thought because of that. They are just as entitled to everything as a student who is in the general population. Okay? We expect them to succeed as well. The families struggle much more when they have students on special education than a child with general. What are you pointing at?
Turn on your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm hoping that at least the people that are watching us at home are hearing what I am saying. I should have turned on my mic, my camera. So that then it's our obligation to pay for it. So like I said, if the budget is too high, then so be it, pay for it.
Yeah,
If we have to ask for more, then we have to ask for more. They are just as deserving. And
I agree with you. This isn't a funding issue at all. The funding resources are there. The staffing capacity is not. So we are putting a bigger caseload on all of the speech pathologists that we have and therapists. We're putting a bigger caseload on our psychologists. We're exploring all opportunities. So if you know of anybody out there, if you know of any speech therapists, you know of any psychologists that are interested in working, please have them reach out to the school department so that we can, we definitely agree and we want to meet all of the service needs that are required in an IEP. And so, it's not a lack of resources. I can tell you that right now. We have the resources. We have the funding to be able to do it. We've tapped all of our resources. We're exploring all opportunities to provide these services, including, asking our vendors to tap and see if they can provide the services outside of the school hours, and asking our own staff who are already, have a higher caseload because of the vacancies, asking if they're willing to work, extra hours for additional pay. So, we'll put the resources to be able to solve this issue. It's just, that's not where the challenge has been.
I have Miss Burks next.
So have we reached out to any of the colleges that offer like the speech therapy programs to see if they have any seniors that, could start doing their externship sites? I know Worcester State has a program. We have a lot of students locally that actually are enrolled in those programs. So have we done any reach out to any of the colleges that offer degrees in those areas to see if we could probably partner up or get some extern sites out here to get some extra hands on deck? Was one of my questions. And then going back to the staffing, because I have another question there.
Yep.
So I know that when we got all the extra funding, we came up with these extra positions, and there were coaching positions that basically a lot of our teachers, rightfully so, went into those higher positions. But I can't help but to wonder with our staffing status the way that it is, like, does that really make sense right now when we need teachers in front of our students? Having those kind of positions right now when we really need teachers in front of our kids more than we need the extra coaching, like, honestly, right now, because that's, where we're at with not having substitutes, not having enough teachers. Like, is there any movement there? Like, are we using those coaches to bring them back into classrooms until we can get our staffing situation situated?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately. I mean,
And then,
yeah, is it needed? Of course it's needed. I strongly believe that teacher coaching, yes, I strongly believe that better coaching is going to lead to better teaching, and that is a support that all of our teachers deserve. We have a lot of newer teachers. We have a lot of veteran teachers. We aren't getting the outputs that we want. When you look at student outcomes, they're not where we need to be. And I think that better coaching and in making those investments and having the academic intervention teachers that we haven't had in Holyoke in the past 5 years. These positions did not exist for the 5 years that I've been here. We talk about MTSS. We talk about students needing more and providing those supports. This was an opportunity to put our money where our mouth was, right? We talk about getting those supports, and these positions that we created were intended to do just that. No one could have predicted that was going to cause and that this pandemic was going to result in. I think, the remote learning for a lot of people are just leaving the profession in general. Like, that's just the reality. This isn't a Holyoke thing. This is what we're dealing with on a national level. Like, it's a very difficult situation. Do I have confidence that us as Holyoke Public Schools are going to get through it? Yes, absolutely. I think we're going to get through it. I think our students are going to get through it. Our students have gone through a lot. And one thing I can say about Holyoke is we persevere, and we're going to get through this.
I guess, again, so are we using those coaches to put them in front of classrooms because we are so staffed
If we
short?
need to, yes. If we
Okay.
have 5 teachers that call out sick and the only option is to put a coach in a classroom, yes, we're doing that. And we're doing that with the academic intervention teachers too. We're not going to have kids just sitting there without a staff member available.
And are we pulling like history has been that in this district we pulled paraprofessionals to substitute teach or, to cover classrooms when we have teachers that are out. Is that happening currently?
I would imagine, yes, that is happening in some situations when we have a significant amount of call-outs and the only option is to put a paraprofessional there that knows the kids already. That's consistent with, we've done that in the past, and I would imagine that with this staffing issue that's happening now as well.
So I guess, for me, like, what incentives? So we've spoke upon this before in regards to our paraprofessionals not making a livable wage, in the sense that, most of them make maybe $15 an hour, which is minimum wage. And right now we are sitting here and we're having discussions about, we're offering $250 bonuses. And this is, going upon what Mildred's speaking on, to refer somebody in. We are going to the Holyoke Mall and we're having a job fair and we're doing all these things. But again, we have paraprofessionals in this district that are they do get pulled from special ed students where they're written into IEPs because they need them.
Yeah.
So that's truth, and that's another way that we are violating an IEP. But where and when are we going to start valuing our paraprofessionals enough to pay them their worth? And why aren't we offering bonuses to them? Because if we're this short in teachers and they're the ones that are stepping up to the line, then they need to be compensated and rewarded for that. Because they're the ones that are getting us through this.
So if a paraprofessional is covering for a classroom,
yep,
as it's part of their contract, they get additional compensation to do that.
Oh, what kind of compensation?
So if it's an hour, or I think if it's more than 3 hours a day, they get an additional they get their regular pay plus an additional $55 for that day for covering for a teacher. If it's less than 3 hours, then it's an hourly rate. I don't have that right now.
I just
do
think
get compensated for it.
I'm a strong believer. I know their value. Being a parent of a special ed student that required a one-to-one paraprofessional, I know a lot of things that happen with paras getting pulled and what have you. But I also know the value of a paraprofessional.
Yep.
I know that I couldn't trust my child to be in school because my child couldn't communicate. I needed that paraprofessional. So I know their value, and I'm disgusted they make minimum wage. And I feel like their efforts currently getting us through the situation we're in, we need to value them more, and we should be offering them more incentives.
Okay.
That's just me.
Thank you, Ms. Burks, Ms. Tensley Williams, and then after Ms. Tensley Williams, we're going to go ahead and move into the COVID-19 update.
I know that life is not a one-person show. Sometimes I don't know if I'm doing enough personally myself, being on the school board. So today I did reach out to some of the schools, and I did speak to some of the people, and I said, do you have anyone that's using uniforms that need help. And a couple of schools, I won't mention the names, said yes. So I will be donating. They need slacks, socks, black slacks for the kids size 7 and 8. So I will try to reach out and donate something to the kids, because I'm like you, put your money where your mouth is. We need to be a little more helpful, because talk is cheap. And thank God that we meet. I love everybody on our school board, because we really put 100% on this board. So I'm going to be reaching out and giving donations to the schools to help out with uniforms.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tensley Williams. We're going to go ahead and move on to the COVID-19 update.
Yep. And before we do, I just wanted to make one comment, because I don't, the in terms of the paraprofessional pay, we do value all of our paraprofessionals, but I did want to clarify that none of them are making minimum wage. Our starting salary for a paraprofessional is $1.50 higher than what the minimum wage is right now. I don't have the dollar amount. I just know it's $1.50 above the minimum wage. COVID-19 update. I just wanted to share quickly what the metrics were through September 24th, which was about 24 days of school. We've had 164 cases. In the last 2 weeks, we've had 93. And then there has been some cases that resulted in potential spread. I say potential because the way we define spread is if we do have a positive case and we identify close contacts, if those close contacts test positive, we call that potential spread. We can't say with 100% certainty that that was spread. It could be a coincidence, but that's how we define potential spread. So there's been 19 cases like that. We did send a memo out, and this is why we have all these safety protocols. We sent a memo out on September 8th, really calling action to families, making sure that if they're not vaccinated, that they get vaccinated. If they're eligible and are willing, we encourage families to sign up for the Test and Stay program, because that's what's going to keep kids in school. That Test and Stay program has been working really well. If a student is identified as a close contact and is not symptomatic, they can stay in school and get tested every single day. And as long as they produce a negative test result, they can stay in school. So that wasn't the case last year. If you were a close contact, you had to quarantine and you were missing school. So this is a great program that we have in place. There's a lot of communities are starting to implement this now. We've been doing this since day one, through a partnership that we have with the state and a service provider there. We got to continue to encourage our students to wear their mask properly. And then some new additions. We did our walkthroughs. We've been walking through all of our buildings pretty much every day with staff, and some of the things that we've noticed, some of the things we've been hearing from parents, seeing in pictures, is that rug space in the morning, particularly in the smaller grades. Teachers were pulling kids, putting them on a rug where they were pretty close together. That, unfortunately, I know that that's a common practice in younger grades, and it's probably a more effective teaching method, but it's something that we just are completely discouraging, particularly because when we have situations like that for greater than 15 minutes, there's a lot of close contacts there, and if the teachers aren't keeping track of where kids are sitting, it becomes a problem. So we doubled down on some of those safety protocols that we had. Open houses, unfortunately, we had to make a decision on whether or not to have it in person. We collectively as a group made the decision that the best option at the time was to do virtual. Morgan found a creative way to do it in person but outdoors. But that was an area I know, I love open houses and being able to talked to my child's teacher, but unfortunately that was another safety measure that we put in place to not have a lot of our parents in the building where it would be very difficult for our nurses to contact trace. And we also encourage remote meetings whenever possible for our staff. I know in central office and in some schools, if you could have a meeting virtually and it would be just as effective, we were encouraging them to do that. One of the safety protocols we have in place has been cohorting, so we don't want mixing staff with other classrooms. That's a lot of what we've been encouraging and doubling down on. And then just re-emphasizing all of the safety protocols, staying home when sick. We talked about that, keeping the windows open, making sure the air scrubbers are on, and making sure that we're at 3 feet distance for wherever possible. I'm going to skip this slide. This is just part of our reopening plan, all of the safety protocols in place. I feel like I've covered the majority of them. And that's it for a COVID update.
Are there any questions? The only question that I have is what people are asking on the outside. What's Plan B, and when will Plan B start if the numbers keep rising?
Plan B. Can you say more?
So if the number of students that are testing positive in a school keeps rising, what is Plan B? Do we continue going in person?
Yes.
So let's say it's a classroom of 25 students. 15 in there test positive. Are you still having the other 10 in there? Or are you actually going to have them go in quarantine because now you have 15 exposures in there, or 15 positives in there?
Yep.
And then if they're out for 2 weeks, then how's your tutoring? Or what are you doing so that they're not losing that education time?
Yeah, that's that learning plan that we covered on one of the other slides. For any extended leaves, we're making sure teachers are posting assignments in Google Classroom, that kids have a device if they're going to be out for an extended period of time. There is no option right now for remote learning. It's not allowed in the state for Holyoke. We didn't start a virtual school. They will open up the application process again for next year. But right now, remote is not an option.
Okay.
Even if we wanted to do it, it's not something that would count towards student learning time. That time would have to be made up in accordance with state law.
And so the students that are out, right? Because either they tested positive, they've been exposed, whatever. You say you send them home with a packet, because I read something here about a packet. Correct? That's what we're saying.
We send them home with a device. We make sure that they have assignments, that their teacher within 2 days of their absence is putting regular assignments up in Google Classroom for them to work on for the 7 or 10 days that they're going to be absent. We make sure that they have a device, and we make sure that there's regular check-ins from the school. It may be the teacher, it may be a counselor in the building, but they're doing regular check-ins with the student, with the family. How's your child doing? Is he keeping up with his work? Are there any additional needs? So that right now, that's the learning plan that we have for extended absences. If the state were to open up, were to lift the restriction on being in person, then we would look at another option. But right now, that's not an option. And there's no indication from the state that I think that at some point, I can't make any predictions, but at some point we're going to level off in terms of the number of cases that we're getting. But it's been pretty bad across the state, especially in urban districts. There's been no indication from the commissioner that one thing he did announce today was he was extending the mask mandate from October 1st to November 1st. but there's been no indication. And I think if you look at our results, and you look at, and I'm not just saying our results, if you look at the results across the state, that shows the impact that remote learning had on students across the state, not just in Holyoke. So I think the state's looking at that, and I don't see them creating an option where the hybrid learning is an acceptable model anymore. There will be an option to create a virtual school where we're looking into that process for next year. But for right now, we just need to make sure that families that are willing and can get the vaccine get it. We need to encourage that. We need to encourage families to sign up for the test and stay, because that's going to keep their kids in school if they're identified as a close contact. And then it's just another safety measure that we have in place to make sure that kids are safe. And we need to continue to reiterate with staff the importance of, as hard as it is, as much as we have COVID fatigue, repeating like, hey, keep your mask up, and putting your mask up as adults, and encouraging that. It's not an ideal situation, but it's what's going to keep our students safe and in person.
So even new material, that's what I was focusing on, new material that they might have to do. Is there someone that's going to provide them with the support or the information that's needed so they can complete the work?
Yeah, there's
just give them work.
So we're giving them work. We're checking in with them regularly, and then when they get back into school, we need to make sure that if there was any gap in learning, that they get the support they need.
Okay. So Ms. Burks.
So are they not getting, so if they're out for a prolonged period of time due to the sickness, like the 10 to 14 plus days, are they not, so they're not getting tutoring, correct? Because it's COVID, and they can't have somebody like Zoom with them for an hour a day to make sure that there's not a huge amount of loss? Because if they're getting the packets and they're getting the supports, and I know we can't be virtual.
Yeah.
But I also know that we're trying to be mindful of not having the loss. So why couldn't it be set up that somebody's Zooming with these students for at least an hour a day?
Yeah, I mean,
at the very least, just because then, it lessens the chance of loss, learning loss, and we're actually providing real support to these students. So, and if they're out because they're COVID, like some people have COVID and aren't really sick, so, they don't have a ton of symptoms. So I'm just thinking, we're having all these conversations about learning loss. There's some benefits from the technology. And if we're sending them home with a computer, we're sending them home with packets, why aren't we? And we're doing check-ins.
For them to access assignments in Google Classroom, yeah.
Well, right. But I'm saying, like, at the same time, use this technology, and if it would offer a way to support our students so there's not a huge amount of loss, it could be beneficial, especially if we're doing the check-ins.
Yeah, I will say that I've been doing this entry plan and talking to teachers. Some of the biggest feedback that I have gotten from teachers is that the hybrid model that we did last year was really, really, really hard on the teachers. They had to do, they had students on the screen, students in person, and in many ways they had to differentiate that learning. With the staffing issues that we just talked about, we talked about streaming as like an option, and when we look at all the staffing issues we have, that's not something that I think we can put on our teachers again. If we do, what I envision is our staffing issues are going to get even greater than they are right now. Teachers don't want to go back. This is what I'm hearing. I can't speak for every single teacher in the Holyoke Public Schools, but overwhelmingly, teachers don't want to go back to having to teach in person and remotely at the same time. It's been a burnout for them, and like they, and I'm trying to be responsive to that.
I'm not suggesting that at all.
Okay.
I'm saying that you guys are saying you're doing calls and your check-ins and stuff. why can't they be Zoom with the students so that way if the student has any questions or mom and dad on the work that's been given,
Yeah.
so that way that there's not a ton more of learning
Yeah.
loss.
Well, I would imagine that that's going to be part of the call. Like, if they're calling and checking in and the parent is saying, I'm struggling here, he's not, he or she is not doing the work, that that school is being responsive. We're not just calling them just to make a phone call. But I can certainly come back. I know for longer periods, I don't know the exact amount of days, but we do have to offer tutoring services. And we used to have one vendor that provided that. And we've employed 2 different vendors. We've increased the PO. We're expecting that an increase in the amount of tutoring services that we're going to have to provide, especially for those medical situations.
Thank you, Ms. Burks. We're going to go ahead and move on to the entry plan update.
Okay. Real quick on my entry plan, I just wanted to give everyone a quick update as to where we're at. I've done at least 3 different schools. We've had 3 student focus groups, 3 staff focus groups. We've had a community one, a virtual one. You could see in this picture here, we have Michaela Guzman, a 6th grader, who has been at Metcalf since pre-K. And this is, throughout the conversation with Michaela, I realized that I played baseball with her dad, and he's also a coach at Holyoke High, David Guzman, one of the best catchers that I've ever played with as a youth growing up. But this is what I love about this process is in these conversations, I get to meet with students and meet with families and staff and make these connections, given my deep roots in Holyoke. And it just reemphasizes the importance of getting that feedback from all of our students and staff. And I love hearing both the negative and the positive. I've heard a lot of positive connections we're making with families, the culture that we have amongst our staff. They feel like our communication with families is great. For the 3 schools that I have mentioned, that I have been to, for students, that they feel supported. The ones that I've talked to mainly in the middle school grades are the students that I've spoken to. Some of the negatives that I've heard from students is obviously food, for one. For some, one student actually said, "I love the food," and you were there, Miss Burks, for that one. She was there, yeah. And then, some of the students are bringing up that we have a hard time addressing when a student is having behavioral issues in the classroom. We have a hard time addressing it in a way that keeps other students learning. And I thought that was really powerful. I'm hearing this from 5th and 6th graders. They're saying, I really wish that when a student is misbehaving, that I'm not losing out on 25 minutes of learning. That was real powerful. So that's something we really have to dig in. We got to listen to our students and see how we can address some of those concerns.
Ms. Brunel?
I think it's really interesting to hear students give that feedback because I think teachers have been having huge concerns about our discipline policy. We've been hearing it all over my kids' school's Facebook page. And, in the middle school collaborative meeting today, one of the gentlemen that was speaking as a former school leader in the middle school grade is that we need to stop treating our middle schoolers like they're 5-year-olds and making them feel accountability for their actions, helping them understand that they are responsible for their decisions, and discipline is a huge problem. So to finally hear students airing that, I hope that we start to take it to heart because kids need to be removed from the classroom. There needs to be proper discipline. I understand that it affects our numbers that the state likes to see, but it's affecting the classroom as a whole so much more by not having stricter more enforced discipline. So I'm glad that the students are giving that as feedback, and I hope that we do start to do something so where this classroom as a whole isn't getting a B in math because kids can't behave, or the classroom as a whole isn't learning 25 minutes while they deal with a student who can't get their program together at that moment.
Yep. So that's just some of the feedback that I've been getting. Those were the two main themes. Teachers feel like they need more collaboration time. There is a huge issue with retention. Teachers are voicing their opinion that our retention is a problem, and having as many new teachers as we do every year, and that they need more time to collaborate. I think the longer day for teachers has been a theme that has come up. You know that from what I can gather, there's teachers that could go to another district and work less hours. It's not necessarily about the pay, but the work-life balance that they experience. So those are just some of the themes that are bubbling up. I will continue to go through those meetings. My core belief as superintendent is that students are first and foremost. I don't make a decision, especially a big decision, without asking the question, how is this decision going to impact our students? I also believe that, every child can and will learn. If we truly believe in our students, if we create trust, if we create an environment that makes them feel valued, they'll be ready to learn. One of the worst things we can do as a district is have this mentality like, ay, bendito, pobrecito, or poor babies, they have it so hard at home. We have to understand what our students are going through at home, but we also have to believe that they have the potential to learn at a high level, and that regardless of what they're going through at home, they're here and they're ready and they need our support and they deserve to be pushed at a high level and they can persevere. I talked about perseverance earlier, and that's something that I truly believe. I truly, truly, truly believe. I grew up in a foster home. My mom was a foster mother. We saw 200 foster kids go through our house, some of them with some of the worst backgrounds that you could possibly imagine, and graduate from Holyoke Public School and become successful citizens. So yes, our kids do go through a lot, but we have to believe in them, and they can learn. School is more than just about academics. We need to support the whole child. We need to make sure that, students that need more supports get more supports, and that they come to school for more than just learning. Some of them, I remember some of the connections that I had in high school, in middle school, elementary school, and in high school. They were life-changing for me, and we need to provide that same level of environment for our kids. And then it takes a village is another one of my core beliefs. We can't do this work alone. We got to work with the school committee. We've got to work with the city council. We got to work with our partners. We got to work with our teachers, our union reps, our custodians, everybody. This is a all hands on deck approach to making sure that our students are successful. Quick timeline. I plan on delivering the entry planning findings sometime in February after I go through the entire process. These are the key questions that I'm asking. What are the strengths and successes of our school district? What are some challenges and areas for growth? How do we ensure that every graduate is prepared for college and career success? Aligned to It Takes a Village, how do we work better together to support student success? What do you want to see from me as your superintendent? And what else do you think is important for me to know? These are the questions that we go through when we do those small focus groups with students or staff, or when we do these big community meetings. On the next slide here, next one, you can see we've already had I've already done, went to 3 schools and done 3 different focus groups with students and staff. We did have a meeting on Wednesday, September 22nd, our first virtual meeting for all community partners and members of the community. I think we had 39 people show up. I'd love to see more people attend because your voice matters, and I want to hear what's important to you and what you think we need to do. Wednesday, October 6th, we are having a virtual one for families. Tuesday, October 12th, we'll have an in-person one at Heritage State Park. Wednesday, October 20th, another virtual family meeting. And then on Tuesday, November 2nd, we'll have one virtually for all staff. Which somebody just pointed out happens to be election day.
I don't see any questions, so we'll go ahead and move on to annual planning and goals.
Yep.
Thank you for that information.
Oh,
We do have a question, Mayor Murphy.
Yeah, just one question. I noticed in family community engagement, one of the responses was to improve the family and school transportation experience by improving the bus routing system. And I just wonder, what is the longest time any student is on a bus to go to school or coming home from school? And I bring that up because there was an article in the Boston Globe about having transportation issues, and a kid was actually on a bus for 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's never the case here in Holyoke. We strive to keep that time under 50 minutes. There's been situations in the past where we've had it close to 50 minutes, but we've had the opportunity to split the runs. Especially in the berries up there, it takes a long time to get up there. Anyone from Holyoke knows. The fruit bowl. Fruit bowl. And the berries. Jeez.
So are they the ones with the longest?
No, we actually split that run. So instead of going up there and picking up, 10 kids, we sent 2 separate vehicles to pick up 6 and 5 to shorten that run. So we made them a little quicker. I will say, I haven't, it's not something. I look at that information when I get a complaint from a parent or I get a complaint from a school that, hey, my child's been gets picked up at this time, he's getting to school at this time. We look at that information. Our ability to solve some of those issues is going to be harder given the driver shortage. Mm-hmm. But what we did do was we're routing the buses ourselves, which has been an amazing. I do have a transportation department of 1 person, and she's done amazing work. Denise, she was willing to take on this additional responsibility of routing the buses, but we really get to see, the way it used to work. The company used to do it, and we would send them the information, and we would wait too long for them to resolve the issue or add a kid. Now Denise is literally routing it. Boom, boom, boom. It's done, and she says, "All right, here's the route. I need your driver to tell the driver to pick up this kid." So it's created way more efficiency, and we got a real lens into how on some of the information that you're talking about right now.
No, I appreciate that. I just think, last thing I want to have is a kid on a bus for too long when they should be in the classroom longer. So, and or doing extracurricular activities. So, thank you. Yeah.
I just wanted to give the committee a quick update on our annual planning. So in Holyoke, we have a vision here of a pathway for every student. We know that every student is unique, and our job is to prepare them to be the best version of themselves. Every student has a place in society, whether they choose the arts, teaching, military, college, career. We want to make sure that in Holyoke they get the experience they need. That creates a pathway to meet their individual needs. And we also want our students to graduate with an additional credential. That could be a seal of biliteracy, a vocational certificate, or additional college credits before they even get to college. And by the time they graduate, we want our students to be effective communicators, critical thinkers, and we want them to be engaged and productive community members, as well as mindful individuals. Next slide. One of the most important commitments we have made is to equity. And we've been refining these equity commitments over the last 2 years. We want to make sure that the families and students and staff who need the most get the most. We incorporate the voices of those impacted, especially those who have not been heard historically. We promote access and inclusion for all students, families, and staff, especially for those who have not been heard. We reflect and embrace the greater diversity of our students and families, and we work to be an anti-racist, inclusive, and culturally responsive community. All of our work is bucketed around 4 different strategic priorities. That's how we organize our annual planning, and we continue to work towards those strategic priorities. 1 being teaching and learning, 1 being supporting the whole child, another being family and community engagement, and the last one being shared learning and leadership. And you can see here on the next slide, under instructional leadership, I just want to name off some of the important projects that we have under teaching and learning. We are strengthening the implementation of our instructional strategies to support multilingual learners. We're going to be completing a literacy audit to inform the creation of a literacy improvement plan with a focus on the earlier grades, because we know that if we solve those early literacy issues and kids can read by the time they hit 3rd and 4th grade, that we solve a lot of the issues that we saw in a previous presentation. And we need to we're going to ensure that students identified in the bottom 25th percentile receive the systemic interventions in ELA and math that are based on their needs, and that their needs are met. Under supporting the whole child, we are supporting principals in the implementation of student supports, including the new SEL curriculum called Trails. And we're continuing to move forward on planning to move towards distinct elementary, middle, and middle schools to support students' needs. Under family and community engagement, we're going to strengthen school councils. That was feedback that I got here at this committee. Questions: where are our school councils? We're bringing those back and making sure that every school has a school council by October 15th, and we need to strengthen the work around those school councils. And we're going to continue to strengthen translation and interpretation. And under shared learning and leadership, lastly, we're supporting educators to earn and maintain appropriate licensure and endorsement. And in partnership with Relay, we're strengthening our teacher observation and feedback, our lesson planning, and the implementation of weekly data meetings at all of our schools. That's it.
Mr. Wallahan. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Wallahan, then Ms. Brunel.
Be quick. Thank you. Just on the part on the supporting the whole child, talking about the food service contract. Any thought to maybe going to a 3-year contract as opposed to a 5? And we're not kind of locked in if we're not happy. Thank you.
That is something that we can look into. I've found, we're never locked in, right? Like, if I'm not happy with the service and I think that they could be doing a better job, there's always an out. What a 5-year contract does is it gets us better pricing, and it gets us a better commitment from the company to stay in Holyoke and to do better. For 3 years, they invest all of these resources, and they're less competitive in terms of bidding on a contract. You open it up to 5 years, that's when they really, really come hard, and try to come with a better quality product, and they try to come at a more effective, they just try to be more effective when you give them a longer term contract. So we'll look at that. We can get pricing for 3 years. We can get pricing for 5 years. But that was one of the areas I went to the city council 5 years ago to get approval for that.
Thank you, Ms. Brunel.
Being in the planning phases, I know that there's a dual language task force out there. I would like to maybe in the next couple of meetings get an update on like what we're doing to start planning for the dual language pathway at the high school. If we could get an update on that at some point in the near future, just like we're only a year and a half away before we have dual language students at the high school. So I'm sure there's stuff being worked on. So if we could get an update on what's happening with that planning.
Yeah, I don't have an update for you now.
Yeah,
but
no, in October or November, just
Yeah.
something to put on the agenda in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Brunel. Mr. Collmore?
Yeah, can you explain to me the liability of National Guard people coming in here and driving our buses? Does it fall on the city, or does it fall on the company, or does it fall on the state for providing this?
What I will say is that anybody that the National Guard is providing, they have their 7D van license. So we're not putting drivers in there just because they're part of a National Guard. They're licensed to transport these type of vehicles, which, you know, the vehicles we're talking about, they're just regular residential minivans that are 7D registered and have all the safety packages that a 7D van would have. In terms of a liability, I think it's a shared liability. We entered into an MOU with the state and with the van pool company around this particular service model.
Thank you, Mr. Collmore. And I'm just going to say, I know we talked a bit about the equity, and I'm going to reach out to the Holyoke Ethnic Studies, but one school committee member would like to be part of that community advisory board that works along with the Holyoke Ethnic Studies and that program. I think that would be very beneficial. At least somebody's there and is part of it. I know that they have.
I'll do it.
Okay, Miss. Wow, that was quick. Okay, so Miss Burks, and I'll reach out to them. So that's it. We want to thank Mr. Soto for the information that he provided. We're going to go ahead and move on to new business. I will say, what I will say is that I know that on there we have about putting an ad in the Holyoke Hall of Fame program book. Mr. Wellahan had brought that up. We did it 2 years ago because last year we didn't because they didn't have the event, but this year, but it's not something that we do have to take a vote on. I did clarify, get verification because it doesn't come from city funds. It comes from our Sunshine Fund to put an ad of the Holyoke School Committee. So in the program book. Same thing.
That we allow that to happen.
Huh?
I move that we allow that to happen.
Okay, so we have a motion to allow. We have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nobody abstains? Okay, so motion passes. All right, the other one is our annual MASC convention is in November. So MASC is the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. Myself, along with Mr. Sheehan and Miss Feliciano Sims, we are part of MASC. So myself, I'm on the executive board. Mr. Sheehan is our past president, our immediate past president. What is it? Yes, our immediate past president. And Ms. Feliciano Sims is our chair of the urban division. So we need a delegate to be appointed from our school committee to serve at the delegate assembly. So is there...
Make the motion to allow Mrs. Burks to be a delegate.
Okay, so I have a motion for Ms. Rebecca Burks to serve as a delegate on the delegate assembly. Okay, I have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Oh.
All right, so
You need an
motion
alternate
passes.
on it too?
Actually, yes, we do
I can
need
be
an
the alternate.
Good.
I did it last year.
Good.
I did it last year. It's super simple. So if you need an alternate, I can be the alternate.
So I think what we need is clarification. This is an in-person convention. It is in person.
Yeah.
It is, really. So, I will find out. I will find out if there you can zoom in. But to my understanding, the delegate assembly is meeting in person. I do have a board meeting in a couple weeks and get a clarification, and then we can do the. So what we could do is that we could put a vote on an alternate delegate, and then if issues may arise, we'll figure it out from there. So the convention runs from the 4th through the 7th, I want to say. And I want to say the delegate assembly might be on a Friday. I can't remember all my days because I'll be heading out before that.
Friday's the 5th, Saturday's the 6th, and so if it's through the 7th, I can't. I get on a plane on the 6th.
No, it's only one day that the delegate assembly meets and does their business in the Cape. Is there an alternate? Do I have a motion for Miss Brunel to be the alternate, and we have a second?
Guys, I leave for St. Thomas on the 6th. I can't go to an in-person conference the day before I get on a plane. I can't. I can't. If I can Zoom, I'm happy to be the alternate.
Yeah,
Mr. Collmore? As in,
I could be the
travel to the
alternate.
Cape.
okay, so we have a motion for Mr. Collmore to be the alternate. Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor for Mr. Collmore to be the alternate delegate to the assembly, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, great. So motion passes unanimously.
Can we make a motion to adjourn?
No, not yet. Ongoing business, we don't have anything. Mayor Murphy?
Yeah, I would like you, I know at the last meeting, we tabled the request that I had to transfer the property at Dean, and I did try to set up a meeting with the city engineer, but I wasn't able to get that coordinated. I know we sent out to everybody the property transfer, so I would hope that we could take that off the table and consider it.
So, what we're gonna do is, it's not on the agenda and it wasn't carried forward to be on the agenda, so the 3 people that were assigned to that committee was Ms. Burks, Mr. Wellahan, and Mr. Kershane. Is there any way you guys can, even if it's a Zoom meeting, right, if we could do a Zoom with Mayor Murphy and the city engineer, find out exactly what are the ins and outs of the zoning, and for us to transfer the parcel, right? And then at our next school committee meeting in October, which the city engineer wouldn't have to be here because they're already presenting to the subcommittee that we're sending to hear about it, to come back, give us the update, and then we can go ahead and make a vote on it. Our next meeting is October 18th. But if you guys could please schedule like a Zoom meeting that you guys can all do, if it's in the evening or whatever, that would be greatly appreciated. Mr. Collmore.
Just for discussion here, has anyone at all know how much property is needed?
Well, that'll be part of that discussion. Would you like to, well, if they're going to meet by Zoom, but speak with Mr. Kershane or Ms. Burks or Mr. Wellham, give them all the questions that they can ask at that meeting, and hopefully bring it back to us where we can make an informed decision.
It's 32,000 square feet.
There you have it.
It's 160 feet coming down. It's 200 feet from St. Vincent going towards north towards McDonald's. And it leaves approximately 50 feet from the school parking lots. Yeah, yeah. So the school parking lot, you would go 50 feet before the first house would be available.
Okay. All right. So any announcements? I do have two quick announcements. October 5th, friendly reminder, October 5th at 4 p.m. at the Blessed Sacrament, well, the old Blessed Sacrament Middle School, where now we have the dual language middle school program is going to be the dedication of the name of the building to Miss Mary Burks. So hopefully everyone can attend. Again, that's October 5th at 4 p.m. Another thing is I'll be sending out from MASC. It's there's an SRO community group, a community subcommittee. And so they're doing a survey on SROs, the MOU, kind of just finding out what people know about it. What do you think it should be part of an MOU? What are your thoughts on SROs in the building? So the survey needs to be sent in by October 1st. You can access it online, so I'll send the link to everyone. And that's all that I have. I do encourage you guys to please look out for special education meetings. Look out for the ELL PAC meetings. Be a part of that. Listen to the families. It's really important. Ms. Tensley Williams.
Okay, I'm going to make this fast, okay? I wrote a poem this year dedicated to the children.
Oh, okay.
It says, you will never outgrow your need to read. Do you know your ABCs? I hope that you did not forget that they are called the alphabet. It doesn't matter what grade you're in. The alphabet can be your friend. When you know your ABCs, they can teach you how to read. If you can read, you will know the wonders of nature and how things grow. Do not miss out on your chance. If you can read, you will advance. When you travel near or far, the alphabet will be your star. If you are not sure of what to do, reading directions can guide you through. Never give up, and you can succeed, because you will never outgrow your need to read.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Great job, Ms. Tensley Williams. You are our poet.
Thank you.
You're
Now
the
I
school
know
committee
it.
poet. Ms. Brunel.
I just wanted to mention, if you did, I apologize. I don't want to be repetitive, but the school building committee meeting, the next meeting for that is on October 14th from 6 to 8. If any of the school committee members want to sit in on that, and it will be televised as well. Location to be determined, but it will likely be a City Hall auditorium. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Hopefully they can have microphones so we can hear. The echo's pretty bad.
Yeah, there's.
Mayor Murphy.
Yeah, so that we're working. I'm trying to work with Hollywood Media, and I'm also trying to work on whether or not we can do the Zoom and all the other aspects in that auditorium. So that's to be determined. So we may have to find another location if that's one of the concerns. I just want to say a couple of things about the athletic fields and the track. So we're in court trying to get the athletic fields corrected. The people that we were after wanted to have a delay. We've refused a delay. We are now expecting that we'll have some action, some court action, hopefully within the next relatively near future, and hopefully have some kind of proposals that we might be able to accept. Regarding the track, it is my intention, and I'm working with bond counsel to try to determine and put some kind of financial package in front of the city council. My hope is that I can do it for this coming Tuesday, and that the council would pass it on October 19th, which would include repairing and replacing the track. The bonding would be approximately $690,000 for that, and that would be done potentially next June after graduation. Obviously, that requires city council approval. I am looking at combining that with other projects that I know city councilors are after, so I'm hopeful that the whatever kind of financial package it is, it could be bond, it could be other things, but that those things will be approved prior to November 2nd, and then that money will be there, so next June that track will be repaired, and the repairs, and I know Superintendent Soto has worked with our city engineer and with others to make sure that the temporary repairs are going to be done, and if I'm not mistaken, I think our engineer just worked with someone very recently to set that up. So all those things are in line, and obviously we're hoping to get the settlement, get a good agreement, and have the athletic fields upgraded so that this is the last season where we are.
Great, thank you for the update. So, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. I have second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody. Any abstain? Motion passes unanimously. The meeting adjourns at 8:34 p.m. Thank you, everyone. See you next month.